everyone. Welcome to Chuck's Culture Channel, your spot for lively conversation on the lively arts here in St. Louis and beyond. And right now, you're probably asking yourself, why is he wearing that stupid little hat on his head? Well, first of all, oh, yes, and also, why is he having a birthday party with a bunch of animals? Well, to begin with, let's get rid of the hat. There we go. And explain that I am recording this on January 26th, 2024, which means that it is the eve of Mozart's birthday, which is tomorrow, and hence all the animals at this birthday party. Who knows? One of them might be Mozart's darling, although I kind of doubt it. So why Mozart's birthday party? Because my guest this time around is pianist and educator and all-around cool person, Orli Shaham. She has been recording the complete Mozart piano sonatas for a while now, and the next set, the final set, volumes 5 and 6, will be coming out in February of 2024, and then the complete boxed set of all 6 volumes in March. So we're going to be talking about Mozart's piano sonatas, why they are so important, why so much technological change happened during that time, why Mozart probably would have been all over social media had they had it back then, and other associated stuff. So stay tuned because, right now we're going to do what we always do on Chuck's Culture Channel. Before we go to the interview, we're going to have a bit of video. This time it's all about Mozart. Check it out. Okay, so here we are, and here's my special guest, Orli Shaham, as promised. And of course, as I explained in the intro, today is January 26th as we're recording this, which means that tomorrow is Mozart's birthday. Yay!
It's Mozart's birthday eve today.
Eve, right. And it's his 200 and which one was it, Orli?
268 years young.
268. So happy birthday. So anyway, I believe in getting things off to an appropriate, serious start when we're talking about classical music. But
I think Mozart would appreciate the kind of seriousness with which you're treating this.
Yes, I really think he would. So this is quite a project. Let's talk about it. This is the complete piano sonatas of Mozart. He wrote 18 numbered sonatas, which doesn't sound like much until you consider that he wrote them in a space of about 15 years.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but 15 years during which Mozart's style matured a lot, and in which the technology of the piano changed considerably.
Enormously. I mean, this was a time of, we think AI is exciting. Just imagine suddenly being able to have a pedal that holds notes down in a completely different way that you don't have to use with your knees, or that you don't have to push in with your elbow. while you're trying to play, and the kind of technology that went into the strings of the piano at that time, or the early keyboard versions of what we now call the piano. And every city he went to, every home he went to, that literally the technology within that instrument was different.
Hmm.
So the minute he left his native Salzburg, which is around when he first started writing sonatas, when he was still quite young, not quite 20, he began to see the latest iPhone of the piano. And he was just wowed by all the new apps and widgets and things. And he was, you know, to me, in many ways, Mozart was uh, what today we would refer to as ADHD, right? Obviously he
On
was
the
never
spectrum,
diagnosed in that
yeah.
way, but this idea of constantly needing a stimulus to come in from the outside, something to excite him and to get his brain flowing in this way. It clearly was such a part of his personality. So imagine how thrilled he was to see all these innovations in this instrument that he already played very well. Right.
Hmm.
The other instrument he played extremely well in those days, the violin,
Yes.
wasn't changing nearly as fast at that time. And so there was something about this excitement, this enthusiasm for the possibilities of these now 88 keys, which they weren't when he first started, which just blew his mind.
Yeah. Yeah, the evolution technologically of the piano between like the late 1700s and by the mid 1800s is it changed radically. And of course, just to diverge slightly, Beethoven, of course, was another technology pioneer in this respect.
Yes.
Of course, in his case, he had to have a better piano because he kept breaking the ones he was playing on. But Mozart, I don't think, had that problem. But so there's a lot. I guess what I'm trying to say in my own indirect way is that there's a lot going on just in these 18 sonatas. And so I imagine as an interpreter, uh, this offers both a lot of challenges and a lot of real opportunities for you.
Absolutely. And first of all, to your point, the kind of the physicality of it, the things that he learned to do with his hands because of the way the instruments changed through that lifespan, and the kind of technique that he developed himself, translating that onto the modern piano and sort of trying to think, well, what sounds were inspiring him on that particular instrument that he wrote this sonata for, and what was it about that I can try to bring out on a modern, Steinway D, and reflect what he was going for. But also just this, the idea that this went on through his whole life, so that it parallels in so many ways his styles of composition in a much broader sense. So not just at the piano, but for everything.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about sonatas that he wrote, like I say, when he was just barely 20, all the way till the ones that he was writing in his final couple of years when he was writing the Da Ponte operas. So, and everything in between, all of his symphonic development, all of his operatic development, it's all sort of mirrored in this. And so for somebody like me who started life as both a performer, but also deeply interested in historical musicology, kind of obsessive about biographies, doing this project of actually the complete sonatas was so wonderful to be able to map onto his life each of these sonatas and where it belongs.
Yeah. So much happened in that short life. It reminds me of a joke I'm going to paraphrase a joke Tom Lehrer made, which is that uh, by the time Mozart was my age, he'd been dead for 3 decades. So
Yeah, there you are.
just how much he packed into that life. Uh, so what was the genesis of this project? Because it's quite an undertaking. It's going to be 6 volumes by the time the final one is released in February of this year. So
Yeah.
what made you want to do this?
I think I've kind of always wanted to do this deep down, although maybe I
Hmm.
didn't articulate it. I was very lucky as a very young piano student to have a teacher who loved Mozart. And I think I would probably played a Mozart sonata every year from the time I was 6 until the time I graduated high school. So that already takes care of about 2/3 of them. And I already had such a feeling for what that oeuvre was like. And then the more I studied about Mozart, the man, and I play so many of the concerti, and connecting those ideas to his life, I just wanted to get even deeper into these sonatas and into there were a few of the 18 that I really had not spent much time with
Mm.
before I took on this project. And that was part of the impetus too. I wanted to get to know those a little more deeply. And there was something, for me, there was something very tangible about doing this complete set. He's somebody that I feel so comfortable with, that I feel I've grown up with, and he's been a good friend of mine for 42 years at this point. Ever since I first saw those little pictures of, on my first Mozart sonata book of him as the young,
Oh,
the young boy, right, with the hand in the jacket, looking very sweet and cute, and that I identified with as a 6-year old learning my first sonatas. There's that connection has been there always. So the idea that I could now really take the time and just live in this world and appreciate all the details that he's putting in, all the innovations, all the incredible variety of ways that he's treating the form, that he's treating the piano itself, that he's treating emotions, that he's learning how to manipulate us as the audience as he goes along,
mhm.
and he's playing around. I mean, I couldn't resist. It was just like one of those things you have to take off the shelf and try it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Uh, what was I going to say? Oh, so that kind of answers the question I was going to ask, which is why Mozart, because a lot of pianists feel that they need to do all the Beethoven sonatas, or things, but that's a lot of the Mozart sonatas aren't that well known, really, are they, to the general public?
And absolutely true. And they're just gems, really. I think one of the things that I found most fascinating is how different they all are from each other. And they were written in different circumstances. Many were written, and this is was why I was so attracted to them. Many were written for himself to use as a calling card. Instead
Hmm.
of just leaving his name, he would come somewhere and then perform a few of his sonatas and say, here I am. This is who I am. Would hire me for stuff. Which is not a bad calling card. So many were really for himself. Quite a few were also used as teaching tools. So he would give them to some of his more
Right.
successful students and not only teach them how to perform stylistically, but also how to improvise. So there are certain sonatas. It's traditional when you take a repeat to, at the time, he would have improvised on top of whatever the basic things are the
Yeah.
second time around. But some of the sonatas, those improvisations are kind of written out because he was probably trying to teach one of his students how to be a better improviser, right? How to stay within the stylistic language while they're doing it. And some of them are clean slates. We have no record of what to do, and we really have to come up with it ourselves as we go. And that
Oh,
that part of the journey was something also that I was really excited about, that um, I finally felt really ready to tackle, this idea of, eh, what why are you improvising, why are you embellishing on the notes that Mozart already put down? What can you say that second time that is worth saying, and when is it important to say? So, actually, across the 18 sonatas, I took different philosophies about
okay.
improvisation in different sonatas, not necessarily because I thought you always have to do that in this one or you always have to do that in that one, but because I wanted to play around with those different philosophies. How much is too much? When do you not need any? And what does that do to the flow of the whole work? And to be able to tackle all of them that way just gave me such a breadth, like an encyclopedic, awareness of the effect of the tiniest little additional note, and how that changes everything.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is something that I think a lot of people may not know that is true of a great deal of the music from like the 18th and early 19th century, is that back then improvisation was really something that you were expected to do. Uh,
Yes.
People go to classical concerts now and don't really anticipate that, but if you're doing that music, that was a skill that Mozart, for example, would have expected you to have, and he'd expect you to do it.
Absolutely. And I mean, to the point where he might not have even written the sonata down in the first place if he was the one playing it. He kind of notated a few things for himself. I'll play this theme, I'll play that theme in
Mhm.
this key, and then we'll end the section. And then the rest of it he literally didn't even write down. He just came up with as he went along. And one of the tools I used to figure that personality out, to kind of understand it better, is, over the years, I've spent a lot of time with jazz pianists.
Yeah.
And in
Okay.
particular, I've been sort of on the tours when David has been conducting some groups like Jazz at Lincoln Center or Wayne Shorter quartet, or other groups, and I tend to gravitate toward whoever the pianist is in that formation, and I hang around their dressing room and see what they do all day. How are they preparing for a moment when they're going to go on stage and then improvise on top of whatever the chord progression is that this particular piece has. And seeing their process really informed my process, and I think their process must be similar to what Mozart did, which is
Yeah.
this idea of kind of trying out a million different things in different combinations. And when you get to the moment of improvisation, it's not like you're just making it up on the spot, but you have already experimented with 20 different ideas in different configurations. And at that moment, you decide to put them together in the following configuration, right? To
Right.
get for a certain dramatic or emotional effect.
Right.
And that was fun.
It's kind of like assembling something out of Legos. You've got all these separate pieces in your head, and then you just use whichever ones at the moment strike you as really
I,
appropriate.
that's exactly right. It's definitely not IKEA furniture. You don't have to do it all in the same way.
That I'm going to keep that image. Lego Mozart. That's great. Uh, so this to return to the albums. These are volumes. I think all the first 4 volumes are out now. Is that right?
Yes,
Right?
and 5 and 6 will come out in a few weeks, and immediately on their heels, we'll have also the complete set for anybody who wants to get them all at once.
Okay. And folks out there, just look down here in the video description field. You will see information on where you can find those albums, the whole thing. And I'm going to put some Spotify links in there because I know at least a couple of volumes are on Spotify that I know of. So that's great. What else have you got going on? Because you have a lot of other projects. I just want to touch on briefly. You've got the Baby Got Bach thing and all this other stuff. So what is happening with all of those?
Oh, my life continues to be crazy, full of full of a lot of interesting ideas, and I have a lot of students these days at Juilliard, and they're doing wonderful, exciting things, which is just great. And I'm traveling a lot, playing a lot of really deeply fascinating repertoire in the next few months. So that part continues to constantly keep me from getting bored.
Okay. And people can learn where you're doing that by looking at your website, I assume.
By looking at my website and following on the socials, we put that stuff out there, and yeah, always it's a never a dull moment in what the kinds of things that we're exploring. These days, I've been thinking a lot about Clara Schumann and her role
Oh,
in music and musical history and the musical life of uh, all of the piano world for the second half of the 19th century, and her personal role in the lives of Robert and Brahms.
and yeah.
And so I've been doing a lot of programs around that theme. That comes up a lot in what I'm doing, but I continue to throw in all sorts of other things. It happens to be the 100th anniversary of Rhapsody in Blue this year, so I'm doing
Right,
that
right.
both with the full orchestra and with jazz band, and also a million other wonderful fun things.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
lucky to get to do this.
Rhapsody in Blue, that's another example of improvisation because when that was first performed with Gershwin at the piano, there were chunks of it that weren't written down.
Hmm.
And he had a note in there, just uh wait for the cue. I'll tell you when to start playing. And Whiteman just
That's
had
it.
this blank sheet of paper in front of him. So,
Yeah,
well, Orly, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to talk to me here out of your
my pleasure.
busy life.
It's great to talk with you again.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah. And I assume you'll do so again because Gail, your PR person, is a friend, and she's very aggressive on your behalf, which is what she's
In a good
supposed to
way.
be.
In a good way. Yeah.
Yes, yes, as she should be. She's good at her job. So once again, folks, to check out all the links to all the information about Orli Shaham and her Mozart sonatas and everything else she's up to, just look down here. And please, Orly, you were talking about being active on the socials, folks. Tell everybody about Chuck's Culture Channel on the socials. I mean, spread the links and annoy people. Let them let them know that we're here and celebrating celebrating the lively arts here in St. Louis and beyond. Orly, thanks very much. And everybody else, see you later.